How much alike is studying at Oxford actually compared to what Saltburn portrays? Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Matt Williams. I'm a tutor in politics and what is known as the Access Fellow here at Jesus College at the University of Oxford. Now, in today's video, we are going to talk through some Reddit posts that you have put online about Oxford and Cambridge universities, just to see if there are some myths out there that need busting, or indeed, if you've just got it absolutely spot on and nailed, and whether you already know what you're talking about. So let's dive in. First of all, how elitist are Oxford and Cambridge? Is this a place that's full of conservative and really out of touch people? Well, okay, this was exactly what I was worried about before I came to Oxford. In fact, my mother told me, don't go to Oxford, it's full of weirdos. So she actively discouraged me from applying to Oxford, and she was slightly concerned that it was full of people who were slightly odd. The reason I applied nonetheless was because it had this great reputation, and I kind of wanted to test my mettle. I wanted to see if I could sort of cope with the academic rigors of it. Anyway, I was super concerned when I turned up that it was going to be full of people that I just wouldn't relate to at all. You know, I come from a middle class background. I went to quite a fancy school, but I'm not a snob, and I hate the idea of looking down on people or thinking less of them because of where they come from. So I was super worried about this, but I needn't have been worried. Oxford is quite elitist in the educational sense. You know, people have performed very well educationally in their relative schools, but it's not socially elitist. In fact, there are some things about Oxford, like you still wear gowns to exams and to some meals, and that looks like it's super elitist, but actually the point of that is exactly the opposite, so that everyone looks the same and they're wearing a uniform, and so it doesn't matter whether you are a apprentice or a pauper, everyone looks alike. And also the attitude at Oxford is much more humble, because everyone reckons that they aren't necessarily smart enough to be at Oxford. There's a great deal of imposter syndrome. And so the idea that people walk around with their noses in the air thinking how silly and stupid everyone else is just not true. Also, the university is sort of much more big and diverse than I think many people realise. It's got 25,000 students coming from all over the UK and all over the world. The idea that everyone here is a sort of a posh snob is a bit of a myth that dies hard. It's never really been true, and it's certainly not true today. So my mind was put at ease the minute I turned up at Oxford, and I hope yours would be as well. It's not full of posh elitist people, I promise. So, is Oxbridge a nightmare for lower class people? Well, I mean, first of all, I don't like the term lower class. It makes it seem like people are lesser. And you know, people are people as far as I'm concerned. No one is better or worse than anyone else. I would hope not. So there is lots of fantastic support available at Oxford and Cambridge for students from backgrounds that are historically lesser represented at Oxford. So there are student societies for people that are the first generation in their family to come to university and who have come from state schools, and they are very active and very welcoming. There's also a lot of financial support at the universities and the colleges to help with people who don't come from wealthy backgrounds, and we're very happy to do that. I mean, the concrete picture is that we've had students that come from homelessness, that have come from refugee shelters, and they have been able to thrive at Oxford and Cambridge. So I would really hope it's not a nightmare. We try to make the situations as welcoming as possible. Obviously, I can't speak to everyone's lived experiences at the universities, but there's a great deal of energy and effort put into making them incredibly welcoming places. So I should certainly hope not is the answer to this. So the Oxford interview, Catharsis, so stressful, but also went super well. The professor asked me questions that she didn't even have the answer to. What? So, I mean, this is just generally giving quite a positive review of what it's like to go through an Oxford interview, which is actually what we tend to find, right? We tend to find that the students who attend our interviews actually kind of enjoy the process. The surprise of the tutor not knowing the answer to the questions, I mean, no tutor knows all the answers to all the questions, and indeed we tend to come at these problems with quite a sort of sense of our ignorance about the universe, not that we're all oracles that know everything and are complete brain boxes. So that doesn't surprise me in the slightest, that the interviewer was a bit perplexed by what's going on in the world. Yeah, that's what we're like all the time. So that doesn't surprise me in the least. So it's great to read this, it's great to read that someone had a positive experience. That's what we aim for. You know, we don't want the interviews to be stressful or painful or unpleasant. And yeah, I'm really pleased to read this. It's not surprising, but it's pleasing. So, I've been hearing this a lot, mind you. How much alike is studying at Oxford actually compared to what Saltburn portrays? Well, it's not alike. I mean, this is slightly coincidental, but I started my studies in Oxford in 2006, which is when Saltburn is based. So when I was watching Saltburn, I thought, oh, this is me, right, arriving at Oxford in 2006. I mean, it's not a thing like my experience. So a couple of themes that Saltburn deals with is sort of quite stark class divides between the sort of very privileged elites who live in these massive country piles versus the more sort of working class student who's the key protagonist of the story. That sort of sense of massive divides between people of different backgrounds just doesn't really exist. I mean, obviously there are people who are from very privileged backgrounds, but they number in a tiny minority, right? So this idea that there is this overwhelming number of people who come from incredibly posh, massive country houses, that's nonsense. There's also in Saltburn this real sense of antagonism and competitiveness amongst the undergraduate students. You see it in the scene that's based in a tutorial, and it looks like they're sort of goading each other and they're being quite nasty and unpleasant. That really doesn't happen, and indeed as a tutor I would shut that down immediately, right? I'm not going to have one of my undergraduates demeaning another one of my students. That would just be utterly inappropriate and unacceptable. The idea that the tutor sits there and sort of goads them and makes them competitive with each other, oh my god, no, I wouldn't allow that under any circumstances. So Saltburn is not very realistic, I'm afraid. So hopefully this has been vaguely interesting and enlightening. If you enjoyed this type of video and would like to see more, then do let us know in the comments. Or indeed, if you have more questions along the lines of those posed on Reddit, then throw those in there as well and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah, let us know what you thought, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.